All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Ministry Revealed. It is August 29th, 2018. Hopefully you guys have been having a good week. We are Wednesday, I believe it is. And today we're going to confirm a few more things regarding the season that we're in. And you're going to see some stuff that we just, as far as I know anyways, for myself, we just never knew to look. And I want to thank, I want to thank a subscriber. However, I don't remember who the subscriber is now, but they sent me this link, guys. You might want to look at this. I may forget it to put it in the description box, but you can just type this in: Israeli-Palestinian.procon.org. And then there's this timeline here. And the reason I'm bringing it up is we discussed in the last video how 2032, so 3132, when Jesus returns, is the end of the 49 years. And then the 50th year is the year that everything is returned, right? 32 to 33. It fits bang in. It is perfect. We showed, and it was all because of this silly movie called The Deal of the Century that came out in 1983. That kind of got me going down this path, even though I was already questioning the True Jubilee. And I knew it just wasn't making sense. I mean, how is a Jubilee going to happen? And then, like, you know, the Jubilee year, and then it's tribulation. No, it's supposed to bring restoration, right? So how is it? It just doesn't seem to make sense. So that's what got me going down this path. And you know, the 17 years prior to 2000 and from Christ's birth, and you know, all these different things. And so those who are watching this for the first time, you're going to want to watch that last video. We showed that 1983 was the Jubilee year. And I think, you know, we need a little bit more. Of course, you know, that movie just was what I believe the Lord used to get my attention, because it was something I was seeking and asking my wife. But we're going to go a little bit further. And like I said, a subscriber sent me this link because they were paying attention. Obviously they've been watching my videos for a little while, or have gone through a number of the videos, because they were getting some things and it was lining up. And so anyways, they had sent me this link and said, well, they wanted to see if there was anything else in 1983 that they could point to and say, okay, well, now we've got something, right? Not just Trump on the cover from 1983, you know, that whole thing with the dove, which we're going to touch on here just a little bit as well, but also what else happened in 1983. So we're going to go through that, and we're going to take you from 1983. We're going to go back 50 years from there to 1933, and we're going to go forward to 2032 and 2033, and you guys are going to be amazed. I believe we have knocked it out of the park, that we've been revealed the timing. This is the year. It is going to happen in 2018, and most likely here in September. The escape, no, I'm not saying the escape necessarily. I need to spend a little bit more time in something that I came across. Is it possible that we escape even before the peace deal is announced? It doesn't seem to make sense to me, but just something caught my attention that I want to dig a little bit further into. But here, let's start with what we were talking about. Let's go to a picture of Trump with the dove. Remember this? This one here, in a previous video, I'm not sure if I spoke about this before, or sorry, if I showed this image here. But again, right, 1983, 84, and here's Trump. And you guys can't read it. I don't think you'll be able to read it. But you have three little things down here that just talk about the situation with Trump not wanting and then not wanting to do this. I mean, look at the picture. Here you got Trump. He gets his food. He's about to open his tray. Boom, Trump vanishes. And there's a dove. Never mind the fact that you got three planes in the background. Right? This is 83, and we're talking about connections to September 11, and you know, with what's coming up in September this year, September 11th, right? The new year for the civil year for Judah. Just really, really interesting. But let's have a read. What do we know on this channel? these are things we're going to touch on today. We know that it's based off of the 70 years, right? We're in the 70th year. We know that there's a 50-year connection, which is what we talked about last year, and that it's just like a Jubilee. There's 7 sevens, right, for 49 years, and the 50th is the Jubilee, and that's the 32 to 33. We talked about that in the last video, and we'll tie more into it today. We know that the end time tribulation portion of seals and trumpets, that when he returns in 31-32, that's to the Mount of Olives. There's going to be something in around 24-25 on Mount Zion, with something there, however that's going to look, as we've discussed before. So we have a 70-year. We have a 50-year being revealed. We have the 14-year. We have the 49s, which is the 7 sevens. We have the 50th, and it all lands bang on in the timing. You're going to see this. We're going to touch on this. Watch this. So the reason I brought that up off the start was, remember, 21 years. 21 years, one of the revelations we had, well, that Steve Wired had, was the revelation of the Psalms, the book of Psalms. Remember in the 80s, we talked about this a number of times, that in the 80s, it was discovered that Psalms being the 19th book, you go to Psalms 1, 2, 3, 4, and you just carry it forward like that. When you get to 100, it was revealed later, was understood later. You can keep going. That would be 1900 for the 19th book. And then you got to Psalm 100, that was the year 2000. And that there are correlations to each chapter of Psalms with an event that happened in that year. And you can carry it right through. Well, it's the same thing here, that he was revealed in the rest of the Bible, into the New Testament, and how everything continued to line up. And see, you can see right here, the exact same thing lined up. The books lined up in Psalms to these other chapters, these other books and chapters in the Bible. So you can see 2011, boom, Psalms 111. And there is also a 100-year gap when you go through this. So there is an understanding for this 100-year exactly gap back, which is why we can go to Psalms 11, Psalms 12, Psalms 13, 14, not just 111, 112, and so forth. Well, John's book, right? John has 21 chapters. All right? So John, come on. So John has 21 chapters. Ends in 2031. We had this understanding before this revelation of this count was revealed. And John 21 begins in 2011. All right? So the last 21 years, because a year goes from spring to spring. All right? So 2011 to the end of 2031, which is right before spring of 2032. That's the end of the 49th year. 7 years, 7 years, 7 years, the last 21 years. All right? Just like was revealed to us in Genesis with Jacob and his 2 wives. 7 years gets one, 7 years gets the next, works another 7 years for the cattle and the cattle and so forth, right? And then they have a deal. They make a covenant in that final year, right? Him and his father-in-law in the 20th year for that final year. Okay? That's just like we've revealed in Daniel. So the reason I'm bringing that up with the 21 is because of all of these connections. Because of this photo shoot, Trump was called Trump the Dove, and he was also called the Peacemaker, which again, the Peacemaker is part of that movie called Deal of the Century. And what is the media? Now it's quiet, it's not being spoken about too much, but the Palestinian Authority paper and others have talked about it, like in my last video, that it looks like Trump is going to declare, right, the decree of peace and safety, that a deal is done with Israel and Palestine. Okay? And now it's significant because I'm going to show you these connections today. What's another one that just popped in my head? 40 years. So we have 70. We have the understanding of 50. I'm going to show you guys the 40. You know, there's so many that are connected here. It's pretty amazing. So let's go through this. Look, I'll read what it says down here for you guys. It says, at first, Trump was enthusiastic, but sorry, it's really small even for me. And I tried blowing it up, and by the way, it won't blow up the pictures. So, at first, Trump was enthusiastic about discussing the capital subject, the subject, but then had severe second thoughts about it. He wanted to cancel the lunch. Second picture, Trump was worried about revealing the full extent of his involvement in the delicate and explosive subject. It's peace in the Middle East, right? This is what he's talking about. There's a video out there somebody had sent me, and it's called "Trump Has Been Planning This for 35 Years." Get it? 35 years, 14 years left to go when the tribulation begins. That's a total of 49 years. Gets us to 31, 32. 50th year is the Jubilee. And we're going to tie in more things to show you proof of that. All right? So he was worried about people coming to know how involved he was in working with Israel to get a peace deal. You see, and now this guy, this thick-skinned guy who never let all of these things, I mean, guys, people have been against Trump since Trump's been born practically, right? Everybody's been beating on him in the media, right? All the left, all these guys. And he's had to have thick skin with these shows, all these things that he's done, right? But in the background, for all these years, he's been working on the peace deal. Jared Kushner's 36, his son-in-law, and the Kushners and Benjamin Netanyahu and Trump all knew each other even before Kushner was born. You see those connections? Crazy. Okay, now listen to this last one. When Trump disappears and a dove shows up, really? Crazy. So, let's see what it's, whoops. Where did it go? There we go. Okay. Trump is Trump is a hit like the ancient mariner. It's talking about the bird. Not the pigeon, obviously, but a bird. Here at 21, a stranger at the feast. Will the dove of peace become his albatross? Right? Will the dove of peace essentially become his weightiness, his burden of a sense, if you will? All right? That's what it means by the albatross there. So will the dove of peace become his albatross? But did you see where they're having this luncheon meeting? They're having it at a restaurant called 21. And he's called a stranger at the feast. Because he's a Gentile. Right? They're at restaurant Club 21 Club. I think it's still around. It's 21 something, or it might even still be Club 21 or whatever. But it's still around. But 21, guys, you understand that, right? We were just talking about these numbers. And a stranger, Gentile, at the feast. I wanted to add that in there because we've got these little things in here that are telling us he's been involved in this half his life. Crazy. And 35 years is the bang-on number of 73. So now let's have a look outside of the movie. Of course, it was just a movie. I get it, but they're always telling us in movies, connections and events and so forth, right? Movies and music. So now the subscriber had sent me this link and said, I thought I'd look into things that happened in 1983. And guess what shows up? You want proof that 1983 is the Jubilee? If we're in the season now, right? We're in the season that the end is going to be with the Jubilee. let's see if the count is correct. Let's see what happened in 1983. Yep. Israel and Lebanon sign a peace agreement. When? 1983. Right at the time when Trump was involved, but Trump is working for that big peace deal. This was a sign that a peace deal was done, proving that it was, in fact, a Jubilee year. And if you take May 17th, you know what's crazy about this? I've talked about it in the past. May 17th, it's regarding the 13-month years, right, where they throw in a second Adar. It's all been pre-thrown, pre-planned. So sometimes there's mistakes. Just like I said, in the future, they've got one in the year 2024. However, when you remove the second Adar of the year 2024 that's pre-planned, the count is bang on, because with it, it was 30 days off of that feast and that festival, or that feast day. All right, we're talking in the rapture time and so forth, right, with the year 2024. Well, the same thing I believe happened in 1948. Right now, I know 48 is the 70-year count, but when you go to May 14th, and if you go back, where was it? Because they had it as a second Adar year. Look at where it was. Right? But they had it here because they had a second Adar year. If there wasn't a second Adar added, then Israel became a nation again. When? It would have been May, but it would have been Shavuot, Passover. Well, it's the same thing here with May 17th. See? May 17th, 1983. When? Passover. Some years they have the second Adar right, some years they don't. Right? This one didn't have it. Sometimes there's years where they're back-to-back, but they want to spread them out every 2 to 3. Right? Sometimes you'll have back-to-back, and then you won't have it for 3, and then you won't have it for 3. You see, it all works out within the 19 years. And 19 years, boy, that's another number we're going to touch on. Just like Abraham and Israel and Jerusalem. Just like 1948 to 1967, 19 years. Right? We're on this year, what were we? We were also on the 19-year cycle of the super blood blue moon. Right? The 19-year cycle, I should say, sorry, of the blue moons. When you have two full moons in January, 2 in March. On our Gregorian calendar, that happens once every 19 years. All right, so there's a 19-year connection that we're going to see as well. So, May 17th, 1983, on that peace deal was Passover. All right, now what's interesting about this, before this was sent to me, this was just sent to me 2-3 days ago, maybe 4. But prior to this, I had just recently watched, see these different connections with movies, because when I take breaks, I like to watch a video or see a movie, right? So there's a movie called Beirut that just came out. I think John Hamm's in it or something like that. And it showed about, it started in 1972, and everything was peaceful and everything was fine. Then there was a 10-year war that break out, right? 10 years, there's another connection, right? 70 years to 80, right? Be tribulation, get it? There's 10 years. So those 10 years, and then he returns in the movie late 82 going into 83, and then what happens in the movie, again, I'm not trying to relate everything to a movie, but in the movie, it talks about things that had happened, and then boom, that allowed Israel to go into Palestine, and that caused the war right near the end, that the final portion of the war, which brought this on because Israel had been itching at the chance to get into Lebanon to settle things down. And that's what happened here. So what happened on 83? There's an Israel-Lebanon peace agreement. There's Donald Trump 35 years ago dealing in the background and talking about it at the restaurant 21 about his involvement with the peace deal. We're looking at Trump revealing this September 25th the deal of the century. And in 1983, the movie on November 4th came out, Deal of the Century, the year that Trump was doing that photo shoot. You see all these connections? This stuff is always all around us, guys. All right? So there's even more evidence for us that, in fact, the Jubilee is 1983, and the 49th will be 32, and the 33 will be the 50th. All right? Because why? Because then the millennial reign, right? It's going to fall on a perfect Jubilee, obviously. It's not going to be in the middle of stuff. So now let's go a little bit further. What about a 40-year count, right? What about something that's 40 years from the Jubilee, the end in 33? Watch this. Let's see if there's anything else. Now, all these things are related to Israel, all right? Where is it? So you can see here, UN General calling Zionism. You guys can go look at all this stuff. They recognize, who is it? What's his name again? Was it Yasser Arafat? I think it was Yasser Arafat. Yeah, Yasser Arafat as the Palestinian leader, right, to proclaim the state that they're working on. You'll see that, who is it here? Reagan as well. Reagan denounces Palestine for their own independent state. You'll see all these things in here. But look at 1993, which puts us what? 10 years past the first one, right? Which means 40 years out from 33. Watch this. There it is. Oslo Peace Accord is signed by Israel and Palestine. And you guys can go read these things for yourself and click on these things. And yeah, isn't this interesting too, eh? Let's see who the representative was at the time. 1993. He's now the leader, right? Mahmoud Abbas. So here's your 40-year connection, another peace accord. You have the 50-year connection to 1983 with the Lebanon-Israel peace deal. Now, what about going back 50 more years? Right? Is there a 50-year connection that we can find? Yep. Check this out. I don't know why it's not allowing me to highlight. There we go. Hitler's rise to power. This isn't just about when this was published. This had to do with the exact time Hitler got power. That's right. Chilly winter's day in 1933. 50 years earlier, in 1933, 44-year-old Hitler, and what had happened? Germany had gone through three or four different elections here. There are 3 general elections within 10 months. This guy here, Hindenburg, 85 years old at the time, they have this coalition, him and Hitler. And he's so old, he ends up giving the reins to Hitler, see, to form a coalition. Then so Hindenburg, in the coalition, says a couple words, and then turns the floor over to Hitler and nodded to Hitler in appreciation as the new chancellor promised to uphold the Constitution and govern for the good of the nation. It was Monday, January 30th, 1933. 50 years ago from 83, obviously. what was essentially this date this year for us? Just like in 83, just like in 83, what was there? There was a peace deal, right? What are we waiting on? A peace deal. In 1933, in what? At the end of January, there was what? The rise of an Antichrist. Most certainly the Antichrist at that time, right? What happened this year on our calendar? Right? It's all part of what we've been talking about. I just got to get to the year. What happened this year on Tu B'Shavat? The Festival of Trees. Do you see these connections, guys? It's unbelievable. Zechariah is our countdown, is our revelation to the year that we're in. And by the way, there's a really good study on statutes, which is relating to decrees compared to covenants. Very, very interesting. Hopefully I'll do a video on that. But see, is it this one? In the 11th month, in the second day, in the second year, right, if Darius Trump, here, the red horse rider among the myrtle trees. We had a super blood blue moon at the end of January on Tu B'Shavat, which is the Festival of Trees, right? So we have signs in the trees to things that are going to be happening on the earth as well. And then it talks about them going to and fro. And then we have what? 70 years. When, Lord, are you going to have mercy on your inheritance, right? On your land, on Jerusalem and the cities of Judah, these past 70 years. All these things, I've covered this a number of times, falling in order in 2018. And that's why we covered it even before. You can see he's jealous, then he gets great jealous. He's very jealous, or sore displeased as well, at them that are at peace and safety. And then boom, what happens? The affliction comes. All right? That is right now in 2018. Boom. Tu B'Shavat, Festival of Trees, end of January 2018. Red Horse Rider is here, but not revealed. Which means what? The White Horse Rider must be here as well. And we won't know who he is until that peace deal. We talked about it before. You go into the Byron Cyril teaching, or Words from the Lord, back to May 16th, and it talks about it. You know, he's talking about the Red Horse Rider, and then says, oh, but you guys are wondering, what about the white? It's because the white is already here. And the red, I believe, came here as well. And it just so happens that the biggest in modern history, Antichrist, was on a Jubilee year at the end of January. You see, these connections are crazy, crazy, virtually impossible. All right? This is, or 83 is the Jubilee. When Christ returns, it's going to be the Jubilee. All right? When he returns to Mount of Olives, that's when your Jubilee is going to come. This is our evidence. It's just doing a little bit of history work. Excuse me. Now, let's go forward and see if we can confirm the understanding of the time that we're really in. All right? How about the blood moons? Just like we were talking about the blood moon in January, that linked to the Jubilee 2 Jubilees ago when Hitler came. How about this? 2014 to 2015 on feast days, right? Well, if you go and see, I'm trying to think where that count. If we go to 2001 and we count the 21 years, the 22nd year is the 32-33, right? The Jubilee year. The 21 is the final of the 49, as we talked about, and then it'll carry on. And I'm making a point, but I'm gonna jump to that, or I don't want to jump to that yet. So we covered this before. Everybody knows about this, right? Those eclipses, those solar eclipses, those blood moons that took place in 2014 and 2015. We know that there's a connection, and when they fall on Jewish feasts, speaking to Israel. All right? So if we go now and say, well, what else do we know about these feasts? Is there a connection to a further time? Let's see. Sorry, give me a second. All right, sorry, I was distracted there for a second. I just paused you for a second. All right, so we know that these had a significance, but is there a connection also to these blood moons on feast days going forward that will give more evidence for Israel, for the Jewish people regarding these feast days, that would fall into their biblical counts as well? Because there's a significance to 19 years, right? So if we take this forward from the first one and we add 19 years, right? I think it was the April 15th. It's just a difference of a couple days. Don't worry about the difference of a couple days, but we go April 2014 and we add 19 years. We come to 2033. You see that? 19 years. Why is 19 years also significant? Because the difference from Israel to Jerusalem, from getting the land to getting Jerusalem. It was the same with Abraham back in the day. It happened again in 1948, just in the year Abraham was born, in the first 1948. Right? 19 years later, they get it. Well, when is from those blood moons being assigned for Israel, it's giving them notice to say, hey, 19 years to your time is coming. You'll see the connection. Watch. You want to see why? Is this going to happen again anytime soon on feast days? Well, you'd be surprised to find out that it is. Watch this. Watch this. You have to check these things out for yourself, because I saw somebody showing that it was again in 2033 and 34. And I thought, whoa, that's awesome. And then I thought, well, wait a second. That's too far down the road. That's pushing it off by a year. There's something wrong there. And it's because the person was wrong. They had it all off by exactly a year. All right? So you have to go check these things for yourself. Now look. 2032, Passover, I think, yeah, Sukkot, Passover, Sukkot. And guess what? This year, 2032, is again a year where they make a mistake in the pre-scheduled. It'll take a couple minutes to scan through this. But they pre-schedule when there's going to be an Adar. So watch this. Just like I said, in 2024, they make a mistake of too many Adars. Well, I'm going to show you the exact same thing here in 2032. Remember, the Lord will have returned, right? This is his returning Mount of Olive year, 2031 into 32. I believe it'll be late 31. All right? So look. They didn't add an Adar in this case. So in 2024, they had one too many. And I taught this regarding the second Adar, that 13th month. I taught it months and months ago before going down these different trails of the actual season that we were truly in, because it was exactly off by 1 month, and because you realize that they had an Adar there. And then you can see when there's a calculation that is exactly a month off, see? Nothing. It's not on any of these in April 2032. But if they had understood that there was a second Adar this year, well, guess what? That puts April 25th through 26th Passover. See that? Not March, but April. It moves the Passover down to whatever it would equal down here, right? It's exactly off by 1 month. Again, and in 33, it's fine. Okay? So when you see something like that being off by exactly a month, chances are the Hebrew calendar has misplaced the second Adar, that it didn't belong or that it needed to be there that year. I've had it happen during 4 different studies, and they all were relating in relation to 2034. Actually, it was 2024, 1948, and another one here, but twice it was pointing in 2024. But the other calculations within those years were correct. And what started it was Daniel and the count, I think in Daniel 11 or in Daniel 12. I did a count revealing those about 6 years that the tribulation is going to be to the escape of the bride. All right? And when you understand all these things, and you could see these numbers because you understand the 14 years, and you go through these numbers and you start searching for these things and you pray to be led to where these things are going and to get greater understanding. If you understand the 14 years, you'll get it. It'll be revealed to you. The Spirit will open up that understanding. I had no idea there was another back-to-back solar eclipses, lunar blood moons, we'll call them, that there were blood moons again, Passover, Sukkot, Passover, Sukkot. Back-to-back again. And see this one? I believe this one's a super one as well. Just to punctuate it, right? The Lord's here at these. But what's the calculation? 19 years. It's for Judah, for the Messiah's return to the Mount of Olives in 31-32, to finish and to declare the final Jubilee, not the final Jubilee, but the Jubilee year that will then kick off their 1,000-year millennium, their 1,000 year of rest that they've been praying for, that they've been waiting for 6,000 years. Right in the exact same calculation, exactly where it should be. The perfect calculation of 19 years, from the beginning of the first one to the end. The year of Jubilee. It's perfect. We've got the 1933. We've got 1983. We've got 2033. All bang on. We've got 14 years ending the 49, with the 50th being the 32-33. We've got the 19 years with the gap, which is the between, which is the blood moons for Israel. We have the 21 final years from 2011. The landing at the end of 31-32, which makes the 50th year the Jubilee. Guys, it's perfect. I didn't force anything. I didn't push anything. It was all here. It is all here. We just did a little bit of digging. You guys have helped me out with this digging as well. It's all here. 40 years to what? 40 years to 1933. There's our 40 years. Right? 40 years to what? 50 years to what? $2033. It's perfect. I really want to share that with you guys. I'm still trying to figure out what this guy's all about. I don't know if this is telling or they're trying to feed us something, but we know he's involved. There's no doubt about it, right? Deal of the century. The guy writes the book. You know, the best deal maker ever. Been working on it for 35 years. This year equals 35 years. 2018. It's already begun, guys. It's already started. That's why Luke has, and they, guess what? You saw that, you saw in 2033, when it ends, when does it end? Tabernacles. It's always tabernacles. The tabernacles is speaking to, where is it? To each of us. To each group. To the bride, to the church/Israel, to Judah. That's why we see it here in, was it 11? No, 9. In Luke 9, Mark 9, Matthew, I think 16 or 17, right? Mount Transfiguration. This is why we see this first. We are right now in the about 8 days, right? In Matthew and Mark, they both say the same thing. After 6 days. Why? Because there's going to be 14 years left from the moment the bride escapes. 6 years, 7th rest. Matthew, same thing, after 6 days. 6 years, 7th rest. 6 years of seals, the end of the seals, after the 6th seal, 7th is rest. After, in Matthew's, after 6 years of trumpets, the 7th, like the 7th trumpet, rest. That's what's going on. And that's why Luke's says about an 8th day. We are currently, right now, in this moment, about an 8 days. We've passed the 7. We're in September here, in mid-ish September, we are about, if you were to say, 6 months. We are right in that time frame right now. Do you see that? All of these understandings, everybody thinking that it's the Jubilee this year. It's not. Everybody's teaching Jubilee this year, just like this whole thing of 3 days of darkness. 3 days of darkness has nothing to do with the bride. It's not even the church, that portion of the church. It's not till trumpets. It's for them. It's for Judah. Right? That's why we find it in Matthew with Jonah's story. And we don't see it in Luke with Jonah's story. We have a 40-day, the bride, there's a 40-day something that's coming relating to the sign of the Son of Man that's going to be assigned to this generation. We don't yet know what this is. Right? We're still trying to figure out what it is, or we're just going to wait and see. I got to tell you, I'm sure a lot of you guys are feeling it too. There's just like this, almost like a knot in your stomach throughout the day. Because we're so close. We're trying to wake people up. We're trying to let them know the truth that it is time more than ever to repent. We've got to wake as many up as we can. But what do we know? We know that we've been telling people this stuff forever. But they don't care. They think it's a joke, that it's not true. That's why the tribulation has to come. I know you guys know that. That's why it has to come. Because it's just going to get worse and worse and worse unless something major happens that shakes the whole earth. Right? Here, let's finish off with a little bit of scripture. Watch this one. I'm going to show you just this one and then we'll end it for today. Because there's so many more things obviously I can go into. But I'm just going to finish off here. Let's look at this here in Zephaniah chapter 2. All right? So chapter 2, verse 1. Gather yourselves together. Yes, gather together, O nation not desired. Look at this. See, this is what I was saying earlier. Before the decree bring forth, before the day pass as the chaff. Well, what has chaff? Wheat. All right? So when is the separation, the day of the separating the wheat from the chaff begin? Tribulation. Soon as the bride's gone. See? Is this having to do with like Isaiah 66 type thing? Right? Before the decree? Because without going, this is going to open up a whole can of worms in another teaching, and I'm going to do my best not to go too far down that road, all right? But just touch on it. Jesus, the Lord, is the only one that can make a covenant, guys. So when you see in Daniel and everybody's teaching this covenant that he's going to make, this covenant, guys, the Antichrist can't make a covenant, right? It's talking about the decree. This is the decree, not a covenant. See, it's a decree that's about to be made for peace and safety. All right? But this is telling us before the decree. So I'm still trying to figure out, like I said, where this Zephaniah is fitting in with his 3 books, all right? I haven't gone that far yet, but I'm going to show you some things that really tie in to this here. Before the decree bring forth, before the day pass as the chaff, separating of the wheat from the chaff. Before the fierce anger of the Lord, the fierce anger of the Lord come. All right? Before the day of the Lord's anger come. Look at the word anger. Nose or nostril. All right? Where do we know about nose or nostril? Psalms 18, right? 2018. He's about to what? Deliver, snatch away the bride, right? Escape the bride, rescue the bride out of here. But the bride is going to apparently experience a little bit potentially. All right? What does it say here? That he's going to be my deliverer, my buckler, and my shield. The Lord gets really upset, right? So in my distress, I called upon the Lord and cried unto my God. He heard my voice out of his temple, and my cry came before him, even to his ears. And then what? Then he shook and, then the earth shook and trembled. The foundations also of the hills were moved and were shaken because he was wroth. There went up a smoke out of his nostrils. Same word. Right? Same word. So what, I'm still trying to figure out this connection, but I wanted to show it just regarding this bringing forth and decree, and there's a whole lot here. And then you could see, seek the Lord, seek you the Lord, all you meek of the earth, which have wrought his judgment, seek righteousness, seek meekness, that it may be you shall be hid in the day of the Lord's anger. Right? We go back into 18, it's talking about the same thing. The day of the Lord's anger, but we're going to be protected. And what is he going to do? He sets, he brought me forth also into a large place. He delivered me because he delighted in me. And who got to go? The Lord rewarded me according to my righteousness, according to the cleanness of my hands. Those whose hands have been cleaned. They were already cleansed. They were purged. I've got a great video on that. Right? That's who he delivers first. You go to 2024, the year of the rapture. Who comes next? Those that still had to get their hands purged. They still had to get them cleansed. Now they've been cleansed. And in 2024, here they are, ready to be raptured at the fullness. See that? It's awesome. My next video, guys, I'm going to go all back into scripture, all right? So I just wanted to share this with you guys just to go a little bit deeper to see these connections here with Trump and 21 and, a stranger at the feast, the dove of peace, working on it for 35 years since 1983. working on the subject of peace and safety. And now 35 years later, he knew this was coming. He is in the White House getting the deal done for peace and safety. This guy knows exactly what he's doing, guys. We'll see whose side he's on and who he really is. We'll see if September 25th is that peace and safety deal, guys. If we're still here after September 11th, right? 9/11, right? That 17-year connection, right? What year anniversary is it? 17 years. What were we looking at prior to 2000? When was Christ born prior to the 4000? It's 17 years. There's a connection, guys. There might be something. Maybe that's something to do with this connection here in Zephaniah. I don't know. I just know we are not to be messing around with salvation. There is no messing around. It's being repentant, seeking the Lord daily, spending time with him in prayer, giving him thanks in all things, right? Spending time in his word, using a program like this, eSword, if you can, right? To multiply the understanding, to understand that anger means from out of his nostrils, right? Like earthquakes or like volcanoes. So is there something before the decree bring forth? Man, that would be so awesome. Could you imagine, guys? Regardless, we know we are so close, but could you imagine being that close? Oh, I'm not going to click all the way back. But could you imagine being that close? Oh, here we go. I'll do it down here. Right? So close. 1, 2. Like what? Less than 2 weeks? Man, that would be so awesome. That would be so awesome. Right? It's even believed that Jesus may have been born September 11th. Right? And then we have what happened on September 11th, and 17 years later, September 11th. Man, exciting times, guys. There's no doubt of the connections of the years, the fitting of the 14 years, the 19 years, the 40 years, the 50 years, the 70 years. It's all connected, guys. Pray that we are found accounted worthy to escape all these things and to stand before the Son of Man. All right, guys, I love you. God bless you, and we'll